Hey everyone, welcome to a very special emergency podcast episode of the Men in Orange and Black. Of course, we're your bi-weekly fan-centered podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. He is Steve Murray over there. I am Matt Craig. I am right here. Steve, well, I guess we ought to dive right in with the news of a huge trade. Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost get shipped out of Philadelphia to Calgary for Andrei Kuzmenko, Jakob Pelletier, 2025 second round pick and a 2028 seventh rounder. Well, what do you think, man? What huge news. I didn't think we'd be getting rid of Farabee and Frost in one thing, but what are your thoughts here on this trade?
I wouldn't call it a big trade.
Well,
The writing was on the wall for Frost at a minimum.
mm-hmm.
I think Farabee had kind of been in the mix too. I'm not surprised to see both of them go, maybe in one transaction, but it was clear to me when I heard the full details of the trade, because it took forever for the full details to come out, whatever it was, Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
While we were waiting for this to go down, I went to bed because I'm like, I'm not waiting anymore. It became clear to me the major part of this, and Danny Briere confirmed as much in his press conference yesterday morning. The biggest aspect of this was the cap relief after this year, because now you get out from Farabee's $5 million a year for the next 3 seasons after this one, and you don't have to worry about dealing with Frost and his upcoming raise as an RFA.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some flexibility going forward after the season's over. And in the meantime, we got to look at Kuzmenko and see if he's anything worthwhile. And Pelletier is, he's an RFA that we'll get a look at as well, but won't cost nearly as much as Frost. And he's like Frost. He's kind of a first round pick that's unfulfilled to this point.
Yeah. I think my immediate reaction was, wow, I wish they would have done this a little bit sooner, to be perfectly honest, because I was a little tired of Morgan Frost. Well, we've talked about it on the podcast before.
We have absolutely.
And he just, I don't know what it was. All I kept hearing was, well, he's highly skilled. He certainly didn't show it to me on the ice. I don't know what it was with him that just didn't translate, if he wasn't getting what was being taught to him by Tortorella, or if it was something far deeper than that. I don't know.
There were flashes. You could see he has some talent.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, you're right, he just can't put it together. Like, he was put on a line to start the season with Michkov. Didn't do anything. At some point, he was paired with Michkov and Tippett, both of whom were racking up some points together at the time, irrespective of Frost. It was like Michkov from Tippett or Tippett from Michkov, and Frost was nowhere to be found in that score sheet.
Yeah, exactly. And
he got to play with Konechny, who's on a point-a-game pace, and didn't work there. I understand, and a lot of people are taking it hard because they're good locker room guys, and everybody liked them in the locker room, and that's fine. But the goal is to build a winning team, and a winning locker room alone that cannot make.
Yeah.
So you have to move guys. I believe Frost had all the chances possible over the last 3-4 years to make an impression. And you're right, he just didn't.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I don't know what it is. He promptly went -2 in his first game in Calgary.
Ding. Yeah, that's all going to work out for that playoff push in Calgary. That's for sure, because that's why they brought him in. Brought both Farabee and Frost in to make a push. And it goes -2. I guess you get what you paid for. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, we don't see Kuzmenko or Pelletier until, I think, Utah, because of visa issues and things along those lines that Briere did talk about in his presser. So that was kind of like, okay. So we have like a week or maybe a couple of days before, they come on board. So we're running a little bit thin as a result of that. I wanted to show here a little bit before we talk about Farabee, the cap projections. If you go to puckpedia.com, think of the word puck and then pedia, PEDIA.com, right?
Is it
It
like
kind of,
Wikipedia? We can change it if we don't like it.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, exactly. Right.
I wish.
Yeah, I wish too. I think it's
The Flyers suddenly have 70 million in cap space. Where did that come from?
how did that take place? You can see here the cap projections are already looking very positive for the Flyers. We'll dig in a little bit to it, but 25-26, the NHL is projecting a cap limit of $95.5 million for all players. Right now, since you got rid of Farabee, you got rid of Frost, that's now with Calgary, you have a projected cap space next year of $23 million. That kind of makes you a little bit of a player heading into free agency. That being said, we look a little bit further, you could see.
Yeah, you got to look at the guys you got to re-sign.
You're breaking down. So you got Couturier, Tippett, and Konechny all locked up. Kuzmenko is your UFA, 28-year-old. You don't know what you're going to make of him. We'll have to see. He's $5.5 million. We'll see. Right now,
I don't think they'll. I mean, unless he really blows the lid off on these final 30 or 5 or 40 games, whatever's left.
Yeah.
He's definitely not. They're not going to re-sign him at that.
Yeah.
If he develops some kind of chemistry with Michkov, shows some abilities, they might look to re-sign him. But I would be surprised if he was on the roster next year.
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Then you look ahead. You've got Lawton at $3 million. Then Noah Cates, restricted free agent that's arbitration eligible, as you can see there. You got to get that guy signed. I mean, this is a priority signing for the Flyers.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably, you're looking at a guy probably that would make north of $4 million, my guess, the way he's played. Currently at $2.6 million now.
We got to see how he does over the rest of the season. But yeah, he's certainly helped his numbers with his play so far.
No question. Yeah. Hathaway, you've got locked up for another 2 years. Palin, you've got 1 more year left. Delorier, you have 1 more year left with him. Brink, you have 1 more year left, but then he's an RFA, or also arbitration eligible. Michkov, and Jakob Gauthier. Who now I think recently got called up from Lehigh Valley.
Called up. But that's probably, I'm guessing that this probably means a 2-way contract.
Definitely a 2-way. Yep.
Yeah. He's going to get a shot, but I don't, whatever.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to see with him. Forrester, UFA, my boy. You got to get him signed up, I would think. Seems to be pretty much on pace for 20 goals now. He's not arbitration eligible, though, so that's very interesting. But at age 63, if you're going to sign him,
he's going to be due for a raise.
You got to think of a raise there, too. And
I don't think it's going to be huge, though.
No. You probably look at $1.5 million for he's probably third line.
Maybe.
But then you have Pelletier, of course, from the trade from Calgary, also arbitration eligible. Anthony Richard on a 2-way deal, and then Rodrigo Albals, who again recent call-up 2-way player, unrestricted free agent. Probably will say goodbye to him. Looking on defense,
well, maybe not. Well, who knows?
Yeah.
If he comes back, it'll probably be a similar deal, 2-way. Not a lot of money.
Yeah, maybe like 850,000, maybe. Then you look on defense. Oh my God, Ryan Ellis. We got
just no.
Yeah, exactly. Sanheim, Ristolainen, pretty much locked up. You got Sealer locked up for a long time. Drysdale, you got another year, and that's going to be interesting with him at $2.3 million. That's going to be interesting in the following season after 26-27. What's going to happen there? Zamula currently on IR at 1.7. He's going to be arbitration eligible for next year, 26-27. York is an RFA, arbitration eligible, Steve.
He's going to get a raise.
That's got to be a raise, I would think. Eric Johnson, unrestricted free agent, 36-year-old. You're probably going to say goodbye to that. Emil Andre, 2-way at $903K at the moment. Shown flashes, but again, undersized. So you got to think like, okay, well, where would you put him? He's going to be RFA eligible 26-27, though. Thoughts there on your defensive core? Anything there?
I wouldn't necessarily rule out Johnson. He's kind of been the good soldier, and certainly having a veteran guy back there. But I don't think they want to have a young guy sitting out the way he does.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if they want to bring younger guys up. A lot's going to depend on what happens with Risto, whether he stays or gets moved either at the deadline or this offseason.
Yeah.
Cam York obviously is going to get a raise, and Andrei, we got to see if he's going to be here full time.
Yeah, exactly. All of your goaltenders are locked up for 25-26. Fedotov, Urson, and Kolosov. Kolosov, of course, on the two-way right now, sharing time between him and Lehigh Valley, which is good. Cal Peterson, though, oh my God, that monstrosity is going to leave our books at the offseason. That'll be great. We got 2 buyouts. Really, Atkinson just stays on for one more. So that's good that you at least have that absorption still. And that's also for Kevin Hayes. We don't know what retained is. Any idea on that, Steve, with retained? We'll have to look into that.
When they traded Hayes, they retained some of the salary cap hit.
Bingo.
And so that's going to count against our cap next season.
Yeah.
That's when you hear Keith Jones and Danny Briere talk about dead money. That's dead money.
That's dead money right there. So then, if we look at the draft picks, 7 picks in the first 2 rounds.
They're not taking 7 people in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
They're going to use those.
That's got to be ammunition to do something, right?
Yes.
You know, either do you move up further in the draft? Do you move back in the draft? Do you use those picks to maybe make another deal in the offseason? You know, time is kind of running out, obviously, you know, the trade deadline's coming up in, I think, at the beginning part of March, but then on top,
it's a month still, but
yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. 2 of those, of course, are conditional, but they're looking really good, obviously, with them in Colorado.
Yeah.
Really happy about that. But look at that, Calgary, Anaheim, Columbus, and then our own pick, which is very interesting. But yes, 7 in the first 2 rounds. I don't think I've ever seen a Flyers organization operate that way before, ever, in that regard. But it's very interesting where they find themselves now with their draft picks after this trade. Be interesting to see what they do. But certainly would you now have a projected cap space heading into the offseason of $23 million with a few people that you got to sign, that might leave you with about 17, maybe 16 million if we had to ballpark it. My guess, of course.
I haven't done the math. I can't. You probably have at least 10.
Yeah. Minimum 10 million.
Yeah. But
does that make you a player?
To waste it. And Danny Briere said as much. He's like, we're not going to spend money just for the sake of spending money.
Yeah.
I don't know what the class looks like of free agency this year. I haven't looked it up.
Yeah.
So I don't know who's available. I don't know that this is the off season to make the free agency splash. Maybe this, you make a trade.
Yeah.
So somebody who's making big money. We'll see. The Pedersen thing out of Vancouver probably has now cooled off that JT Miller has been moved.
To the Rangers, by the way.
Yeah, to the Rangers, but who cares?
Yeah.
So that's probably not going to be looked at anymore. But you never know whose name could pop up in a trade talk. I mean, again, Mikko Rantanen wasn't talked about as being on the move, but there you go.
There you go. Yeah. So that's our takeaway. Any final thoughts, Steve, before we get the heck out of here? Do you think this trade was an overall win for the Flyers? Given everything for what I've seen in terms of comments, it has not been received very well. A lot of people think they've punted on the year. It's over. You know, the next step is to get Torts fired, all that kind of stuff. I mean, what do you think of all that?
I certainly think there's been a lot of overreaction.
Yeah.
Some of what I've seen is like, oh, the Flyers, this is all they got back. It was Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost. What did you think they were going to fetch?
Yeah.
Okay, Morgan Frost, we already talked about. Joel Farabee had some nice seasons, but in the span of a calendar year, it was just about this time last year. He had 50 points last season. 20, I think it was 20 goals. But most of that came in the first 48 games of the season. The last, so what is that, 34 games?
Something like that.
He scored 10 points, including a single point in the final, I think it was 12 games.
Yeah.
When we were trying to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that has carried over into this season where he had some really unsteady play.
Yep.
And I like Joel Farabee as a human being. It's sad to see him go. It's sad to break up the locker room like that. But you can't be paying $5 million a year for the next 3 years if this is the kind of production you're going to get out of him.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it was very curious to hear Danny say this, but he's like, yeah, nobody was willing to take on the whole salary for Farabee in a trade.
Yeah.
Until Calgary.
Calgary made a call.
If they're willing, because we can't be in a position, we're trying to clear dead money. We can't be adding more dead money on top of dead money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Farabee got this contract at a time when he was on good pace. We thought he was going to improve.
Mm-hmm.
For a small second, he looked like he was going to do it. And then for whatever reason, he just hasn't been able to.
Yeah.
We have to move on from that contract. And we did.
Yeah.
Would it have been great to get a first round pick? Oh yeah, absolutely. But who's going to give you a first round pick and take on the entire $5 million salary?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for the people who didn't think we got enough, again, look at what we got rid of and tell me what more you were going to get.
Yeah.
And for the people that given up on the season, what were these guys giving you offensively to begin with?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it could end up being a wash if Kuzmenko can get, how many games do we have left? 30?
At least 30 something like that. Yeah.
30. If he can give you like 10 goals over that span,
I'd be happy with that.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Because that's more than you were probably going to get out of Farabee.
Oh yeah.
And Frost is so inconsistent, you never know what you're going to get from him.
Yeah.
Night in and night out.
Yeah.
So I'm not willing to say this was a slam dunk win. I think this is good for us after the year is over.
Mm-hmm.
We never said if they make the playoffs, great. But if you recall our very first episode, we're like, that's not what the season's for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If this hurts us in the short term, fine, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Walker getting traded last year hurt us greatly.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yep. But you make that move because of the draft picks. Basically.
Absolutely. You got a first round pick out of that.
Yeah.
Okay. You got a second round pick out of this
ultimately,
and the benefit of not having to pay $5 million plus whatever you're going to have to pay Frost on his next deal.
Yeah.
You know, that gives you some wiggle room, and that's what we need at this point.
No question. Yeah.
So I can't grade the trade, but certainly there are good aspects that came out of it for the Flyers.
Yeah, I would say, I think we're probably in agreement. It's an incomplete right now. It's not an A+. It's certainly not an A+ or an F, but it's certainly incomplete because, again, we don't know what Kuzmenko could bring. We don't know what Pelletier is going to bring either. I think the added bonus is the fact that you got 2 extra picks on this that Calgary just kind of threw in, basically. Now, the 2028 7th round pick, that's not going to matter too much. You might as well get Gatorade bottles at that point on your bench. That's not going to matter much. But the second round pick in this upcoming draft is interesting that they threw that in there. And the fact that now we have a lot of bullets in the chamber to do something with the trade deadline coming up in a month.
I'm not going to even say the trade deadline. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying you're right. It's incomplete because we need to see what comes of this.
Yeah.
You know, how does that pick get used?
Yeah.
Right. How does this new fresh cap space get used?
Mm-hmm.
So it actually goes beyond the trade deadline. It goes to the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Any trades or anything you make leading up to the draft, who you take in the draft, where you take them.
Yeah.
And then thereafter, what becomes of the cap room.
Yeah, exactly.
Until you know all that, you can't really grade it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here and either praise Danny Briere or
rip him to shreds
for what I've seen in the last 48 hours.
Yeah.
Right? Like, calm down.
Yeah. We don't know. We don't know. We hope to know, but we'll see. That's a wait and see approach. And hey, when you have that amount of cap space heading into an off season, it's pretty good, especially when you've got some people that you got to sign and pay that have performed well this year and are due for the bonus and are due for raises and things along those lines, as we showed before. So huge to be able to free up a little bit more of that cap space. And who knows, maybe you make a splash in free agency in July and we'll have an emergency pod in July. You never know with this podcast. You have no idea. Who knows? Maybe, when you're on vacation, Steve will do an emergency pod while you're on the beach in Ocean City, New Jersey, right?
Yeah, end of August. Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's an odd time to be making moves.
Right,
Okay.
exactly, right. I was hoping more July 1st, but you never know. But anyway, this concludes our
Not too expensive July 1st.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly. There you go. All right. Well, that concludes this emergency pod of the Men in Orange and Black. Join us, of course, on Thursday. Our next episode, Thursday, February 13th. We'll go through all the games that we reviewed or previewed for you in our last episode number, I believe it was 9. Yeah, it's episode 9. What the hell?
Don't look at me. I lost count.
So did I. Anyway, well, do you have anything smart before we to say before we get the hell out of here?
Go Birds, Super Bowl.
Go
Licks.
Birds. Let's go. Woo!
Yeah.
In the meantime, for Steve, I'm Matt. Let's go Flyers!